I think the statement that keeps being made is, risky, right? Are we entering into situations where people are needing to leverage themselves to make something work?
All right, what's up, everybody? This is Maynard Wagner with the Wagner Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Northwest here in Seattle, and we are excited to be back with another episode of the Seattle Living and Wealth Building Podcast. It's been a couple months, actually, so I'm really excited to get together. We're here at a revamped studio, so that's exciting as well. And there has been a ton going on in the last couple of months. Things are a little bit unusual. You've got the Seattle Mariners in the playoffs. That's wild. You've got 70+ degree weather here in October, and you've got 7.5% interest rates. So all kinds of crazy things going on, right? What's exciting, I want to hear from these guys. We've got our usual suspects here, two power brokers here in Seattle, Justin Day and Michael Dapper. How you guys doing?
Great.
Fantastic.
Glad to be in the new studio here. This is exciting.
Yeah, studio's beautiful. We've got a great fall coming in. Geno Smith is actually a pretty good quarterback.
It's going to be 82 degrees on Sunday.
Yeah. Wild times right now. We're excited to cover a lot of things, especially with what's going on in the real estate market. So many different changes, so many things going on. Again, it's been a couple of months, and a lot can change in a couple of months. So we'll go over kind of the state of the union, how that may affect you as a buyer or seller in the marketplace, and then also dig into some cool Seattle things, some Seattle trends and home trends that we're seeing. What's going on in your guys' lives? I know there's a lot going on. Mr. Dapper, what do you got?
Well, in my personal life, I'm going to get married in about 2 weeks, so focusing on real estate in my personal life has been a number one challenge, but also, greatest pleasure as well. So that's been fun.
Well said.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Planning a wedding for sure. No, but it is an exciting time to be in real estate. We were just talking about this before we started that. Right now, we've got the time, we've got, the commitment to really spend time with clients, whether buying or selling, to really fully think this out. You're not under the gun as you might have been before. So that's an advantage, I think, in any situation, no matter the interest rate. So that's a big time bonus. And yeah, a lot's changed, but it doesn't change isn't always bad. People tend to kind of have a shell shock when something massive changes. Yes, we're at 7+%. Okay, so what does that mean? What do we do about that? What are our options? What are some advantages of that market? Rather than just focusing on the interest rate. There's a lot of positives. Sometimes it's not going to work for people, but a lot of people are taking advantage of the situation. So that's kind of exciting to really work as a real estate agent and focus on these nuances to find that advantage.
Well said. So people are still buying and selling real estate, it sounds like. You still have a job and things are moving.
I still have a job, still making money, still making people happy. So that's all good.
Okay, good to hear.
Yeah.
What say you, Mr. Day?
I mean, I echo his statements exactly, and we've said it on this podcast many times that, people buy and sell houses, not necessarily because the market's hot or the market's going up or going down. They sell because life happens and things change every day, and people have different goals. Maybe you have another kid, maybe you're downsizing, whatever it may be. So, I think this is just a market that's accentuating that even more. Because, yes, I mean, it's not the perfect time to buy for everyone at all. It's probably, let's say half the people in this world, it's probably a reasonable time to buy for. But there's other markets where it could be more attractive. But that doesn't mean it's not the right time for everyone. So.
Yeah. So back in March, was it the perfect time to buy when 20 offers were being made on houses?
Good point. Yeah, I mean, that was obviously a very challenging market in the sense that, we're in a competitive situation. You had to give your firstborn child to be able to actually get something under contract. It was overwhelming in some respects for a lot of buyers in the market. Sellers loved it, right? Mm-hmm. But, we're now in a market where people are able to, dictate the terms of their offer more than they would have before. You're seeing places that are sitting on the market longer, which means that you can offer below list price with all the contingencies to help keep yourself comfortable. And I think the main downside, the only reason why you wouldn't buy in this type of market is because of affordability with where interest rates are. But that's really the only downside to it.
Well, I think it's an interesting point. Sellers did love it. I think it's it's pretty clear that yes, it was a great time to sell your house last year for sure. But there's still multiple buyers typically for one home or in multiple interests in one home. So you've got more buyers out there than sellers. We're still in a seller's market. So when you look at demand, for the majority of people, they're not sellers, they're buyers. They're looking at houses to purchase. So, for the sellers out there, you can still sell your house. We can touch on that as well. There's definitely some strategy involved in order to get that done. But for buyers, how many people do we meet? And how many of those people say, I've got an infinite timeline of when I want to make this happen? Most people have some timeline in mind. They might not need to move in the next 3 months. Maybe it makes sense to wait, but maybe they do need to move in the next year. Maybe it's a job, a baby, a divorce. Some good things, some bad things will compel them to make that decision. So you can't always wait for a low interest rate. And I always say, the market will always respond. So when you're thinking about that house, don't think about I want this $900,000 home and I wish it had a 3% interest rate attached to it. If it had a 3% interest rate attached to it, you're probably not looking at a $900,000 home anymore. So
true.
Understand what you're really looking at out there in the market.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. So if it's not the right time to buy for everyone, who is it the right time to buy for?
Yeah, I just had someone get under contract a week and a half ago, I guess it was. And she had I've been in communication with her for roughly a year or so. And she had a timeline actually that was more pushed into 2023. But there was a couple places that came up that really piqued her interest. And, for her, it made sense because, once again, that timeline made sense. And she was also, financially able to withstand what the interest rates look like right now. And so, we were able to get her into a 2-1 buy down program with her lender, which essentially means that you're able to get a 2% interest rate reduction on the first year of your loan and a 1% interest rate reduction on the second year of your loan. And by the time you get to the third year, you're at a full interest rate or whatever it was that you locked in at. And, subsequently, the hope is that you'd be able to refinance at that time. But she's able to cover the monthly payment very comfortably, regardless of what that looks like in the future. So for her, this really is actually a great time to buy because she was able to get into a situation where she was, comfortably within her monthly payment range. She was able to get a large credit towards her closing costs from a new construction builder. And so it really worked out perfectly for her. But once again, that's not everyone. She's able to comfortably afford that monthly payment. And it's, that she's the perfect person really to buy in this market.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good example. I think, she's a first-time home buyer, correct?
Correct.
Buying new construction in a great neighborhood, the Greenwood neighborhood.
Correct.
That's phenomenal for roughly $600,000 or so.
Yeah,
right?
665.
Yeah, a price you would not even come close to achieving 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Right. So that's what's pretty cool about it, right? And so, worrying about, I guess, the interest rate obviously is tough, but more so, what can you afford? And that's what it comes down to. She could afford the down payment. She can afford the monthly payment. She's getting this temporary rate buy down, which is helpful, but she's also going to be able to afford the payment many years into the future, regardless of this temporary rate buy down. So I think just being an astute buyer right now in this marketplace is somebody who's comfortable with their job. They have a budget that is probably under their top of their budget. So they can make sure they can afford it and it's comfortable. And now you can go shopping. There's not just one house on the shelf. There's 50 houses on the shelf. So that's a massive shift right now for the current market.
Right. I just had a young couple that get into contract for a home near the University of Washington. So one is a graduate student. The other works in the science field and got a recent promotion. Already had a good job with good income, so was able to qualify with that. but we looked at a home that I think was just shy of 1.2, and we ended up getting about $90,000 down from that list price. It had only been on the market for a little over a week, but maybe it was a little high, so saw some opportunity there. And it also has a full apartment underneath. So it's 3 bedrooms upstairs, full apartment with washer and dryer, full bath down there as well. They can rent that out for about $2,000. So perfect situation. So if you look at that, you know, I showed this house to you, JD, and you said last year that house would have gone for 1.4. 100% would have gone for 1.4 in 2 days. Easy, right? So you got 90 grand under list price. Even if you assume that it would sell for list a year ago, that $90,000, you know how long it would take to make up $90,000 and the difference in the interest rate? Quite a while, right? So they're fine with the interest rate, and then having that additional income available to them makes it a perfect situation for them. 100% not possible 1 year ago. So for them, this is a great opportunity, great market for them.
Yeah. Another great example, right? First-time home buyers as well.
Yep.
First-time home buyers taking advantage of a rental market that is expected to continue increasing. So when they qualify for this purchase, they're not qualifying based on the fact that they can rent out the room. They're qualifying based on their own income.
Right.
But why not knock $2,000 off a month, because that's what the place rents for right now.
Yep.
So there they are, just making a smart, astute investment decision, but also one that's not too risky.
Right.
So a perfect, again, buyer for this current marketplace.
Yep.
I think the statement that keeps being made is, you know, risky, right? Are we entering into situations where people are needing to leverage themselves to make something work? You know, at the end of the day, that's not where we want to be. We want to be in a comfortable situation where you can take advantage of opportunities, not necessarily put ourselves behind the 8 ball by, you know, getting to a 49% debt to income ratio in this type of market. You want to kind of be in that, you know, more middle ground where you feel comfortable. But, you know, speaking of people that this actually works well for right now in this market, investors, I mean, people who are able to pay cash or substantial amounts of money down on a place. I mean, this is the perfect market for that, because you're able to, I mean, houses are on sale right now. Let's be real. I mean, you know, they're not going to continue to decrease long term. You know, so I actually just had some clients about 3 weeks ago get under contract for a small investment property. And for them, it was a no-brainer because, as Maynard said, you know, rents are increasing. And so they're looking at it as a great opportunity, even though they're getting a loan on this place in particular.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, another good example. You know, I think the message, right, from us as kind of, you know, real estate brokers who have been in this marketplace for many, many years in different environments is that, you know, it's not always a great time to buy. It's not always a great time to sell. You know, we're taking a definitely conservative approach, like analyzing and helping and guide our clients to making sure that they're maybe not pushing the envelope too much in what I consider an uncertain market. You know, I wouldn't over leverage myself right now to make an investment. So, and because I don't have $2 million cash sitting around to just start throwing at properties.
Right.
Someday, but not yet. So,
You might be getting close.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, you know, you have to understand your own personal situation, but it's funny because we've mentioned first-time home buyers that, you know, especially in Seattle, there's a lot of people who make very generous incomes. And, you know, those are the people that are going to be able to take advantage of this type of market. Investors are another one, you know, but it's not like, you know, even for everyone else, it's not a doomsday scenario where you need to sit there and be like, you know, I got to wait until rates go down to be able to afford something. Okay, maybe that is the case for you, but do your research now. Speak to us now. Don't wait until we get to the spring when all of a sudden that market becomes a little bit more active. Rates go down. Because what's going to happen when rates go down, guys? I mean, when they go down into the 5s again, we're going to see that market activity pick back up very quickly. And, you know, all of a sudden when, you know, you could get that place for $750,000, well, it's going to be that, you know, $850,000, $900,000 as we go forward.
And I mean, you know, worst case scenario, right? You're thinking about purchasing a home. You've counted yourself out. I can't afford it 7%, or I just can't stomach it, right? Well, like you said, there's some loan programs out there that can reduce that rate for you over a temporary period of time. You don't want to keep your fingers crossed for the future, right? So we always want to put you in a position that you're going to be successful no matter what happens in the future, because we can't tell the future. But worst case scenario, you find a house you can get a deal on that makes sense for you. If it makes sense to wait, then wait, and I think that's really our job. Our job is not for me to convince you should buy now. This is a great market. Take advantage of these low prices. For some people, that's true. For some people, it's not true, right? So I think in real estate, it's really important to be the advocate for the client and not just sell, this is a great time to buy because prices are down, and this is a great time to buy because rates are at 2.89%, right? I mean, it's really easy to say that, but and it can be true for some people, but there are people that it really does make sense to wait. So if you want to wait, let's talk about that strategy and why that makes sense for you.
Yeah, always happy to talk real estate. No pressure advice, just a consultation to help sort through the noise and the headlines, right? So as professionals who study the market, and there are people watching right now, let's make some predictions, or let's talk about what other experts are predicting. Like, where do we see home prices going next year?
I think home prices are going to see a gentle increase after Q1. I think we're going to see at least one more Fed rate hike. I think regardless of how that affects mortgage rates, sometimes, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but sometimes it can be an inverse. But regardless, anytime somebody sees a headline that the Fed raised the rate again, it'll send a little bit of a panic to people, right? I think holidays are coming up too. We're in Seattle, although we've got beautiful weather now. Not everybody wants to go around and look at houses in the middle of December. So I think after the first quarter, we're going to start to see prices slowly rise, but not at the appreciation rates that we were seeing in the last, 18 months.
I carbon copy that statement exactly. I mean, I think one thing that's really interesting, though, is that when you look at the mainstream media, they're always reflecting what things looked like a year ago versus now.
Right.
And so looking at that appreciation, and they're saying, well, house prices are still going up right now, well, which we know is not the case. I mean, yes, maybe they're 15% higher than they were last September, but at the same time, they're probably, let's call it roughly 15 to 20% less than they were back in April or May.
Right.
So, home prices are decreasing as we speak right now. It's hard to tell exactly what's going to happen in the short term, but I echo Michael's statements exactly that we're going to see that push back, and it's going to be once we see those interest rates recover a little bit. As soon as we see them kind of getting into the low sixes, high fives, whatever it may be, I think you're going to see that push again. And once again, not to the same extent that we were seeing before,
right.
Of course.
Yeah, I agree with you guys as well. I think just moderation, kind of a little bit more stability, a little trickle of growth is in order. We might see a little bit more decrease here in the next month or two, but it's really property by property, because we are seeing certain bidding wars on properties, like some of our listings, bidding war, 5% above list price. The bidding war was 2 buyers.
Right, yeah, right.
And the bidding
so that's
war,
a difference, right?
And 5% instead of 40% or
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it is.
Absolutely. And then we have another listing of ours where, got list price, great result. Another one about 40,000 below list. Another, there's some variability out there, and I think that's what's important to know, is you can't put a broad brush across the market right now. It's property by property. So have an expert, an experienced agent on your side to help you analyze that. But overall, most experts, all the these experts in the room, as well as some of the bigger followers of real estate, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Zillow, they're all coming out with a range of home price appreciation updated now for 2023, and a relatively conservative amount, like 1 to 3%. One of the maybe 6 or 7 big forecasters is predicting a decrease of 2%. That may change in a month, but that's the latest and greatest, news as of today. Which again, I think is great. It gives buyers or sellers a chance to kind of pause and make a decision, right? If their decision is not driven by necessity in time, they can kind of think it through and make their decision. So there's a little bit of a framework, a very simple framework when you think about it, but a framework on, is it the right time for like me as a buyer, right? So the trio framework, as we like to call it. Do you need to move? Well, yes. Do you have the financial ability to move? That's yes. And then do you have the desire to move? That's kind of the trifecta for, hey, it's a good time to make that move.
Right.
But let's say if you got the desire to move, but you don't have the financial ability or it's pretty tight, and that's when you pause.
Right.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think another point, Maynard, is that it really depends on the type of property as well, because we're using the general statement of the market as 1 to 3% appreciation in 2023, but there's going to be a different push for different types of properties, whether it's single family homes, townhouses, condos, the luxury market, the lower end market, whatever it may be. I think the types of properties that you're seeing get affected more right now are tending to be properties that are kind of in that middle to middle upper tier.
Right.
You've got the luxury properties, which, to be very candid, there's some great jumbo loan products right now that are making purchasing like a larger mortgage a little bit easier than purchasing something that's conventional. And I'm not going to get into the details of that right now, but we can talk about that later. But there's a lot of different things that are going to factor into what type of property is going to see appreciation, what type of property may see some depreciation. But at the end of the day, if someone's looking for something to change their lives in one way or another, let's talk about it. Let's figure out what makes sense, because it might go up, it might go down, but you're not going to know that just simply by, watching mainstream media.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think that, like you said, the upper middle, which, what are we talking about? Are we talking about like 600 to 900?
No, I think you're getting up probably into that, 950 to 1.5 maybe.
That's where you see the most effect?
I do, yeah. I mean, because it's a lot of buyers are needing to get into, well, I shouldn't say that. Some buyers are needing to get into jumbo loans, which would actually work okay. But there's a lot that are going to be in that kind of, let's say, maybe 800 to 1.3
right.
maybe. That's probably the area, that's the style of home, or the price point of home that's getting most affected right now.
Right. Yeah, and I think, too, when you look at listings like that, when you, even in our market, which is, a higher price market here in Seattle, still when you look at homes closer to $2 million, there's not a giant pool of people that are buying those, right? We see a lot of homes going between that 800, 1.5 range. So, those you're going to see some fluctuations, and I get updates all the time of price reductions lately, and I think some of that is just not necessarily people being greedy or anything like that. It's just people are trying to figure out, okay, what is the price? What is the real demand for this type of property? So you see a lot of swings there, and those are the same homes that we saw the big escalations on, right? So, you mentioned before that competitive situation for one of your listings was 2 buyers, right? But at the end of the day, it's always 2 buyers, right? So you think about
Very good point.
Where it's like, okay, what is the true value of this house? Well, there's the list price. Well, that's an advertisement. There's the appraisal price. There's your contract price. There's your escalation amount, what you would have paid, right? But it really depends on who shows up that day in a competitive situation of what that price of the home is. So, there's situations where we've been in where all of a sudden somebody comes in and makes you spend another $50,000 because they want it just as bad as your client does, right?
Yeah.
But, when we see these fluctuations overall in the market, I really think it's people reacting and then listings coming up and setting and adjusting and setting and adjusting. And we're trying to all kind of figure out what's going to work, Buyers' expectations, sellers' expectations are just trying to line up and make that market happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear, right? There's a lot of volatility going on in the world, in the marketplace. Inflation numbers are still creeping up. The stock market's all over the place. So it's no surprise it parallels to the variability in what's happening with certain properties out there.
Right.
The phrase that I used to say a couple years ago is coming back again for sellers and properties, which is, if it's not compelling, it's not selling. Before you used to be able to get away with, you're just one of the few houses available. So the fact that you're on a busy road, or the fact that you haven't updated the property, or you don't get a lot of natural light, well, it's like, well, that's the only house available, so let's do it, right? Yeah. So now buyers are pretty picky, right? So the ones that do get a lot of attention and do well in this current marketplace, they're priced well. For the most part, they've been updated. They don't have a lot of old electrical or structural issues going on, things that buyers would overlook in the past. So again, if you're a seller, that's the message to you. And if you're a buyer, if you want to be competitive against certain properties or buy certain properties, it's probably going to be those ones that are really compelling.
And I think, to go into that a little bit more, location is such a big factor as well. And, people are wanting to live a little bit closer to those urban centers. I mean, areas like Bellevue, Kirkland, Seattle, you're getting into those neighborhoods. And I think you're seeing some of the areas that are struggling a little bit more are ones that are a little bit further out, ones that were a little bit hotter during the pandemic. I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now is the ones that are the most compelling are the ones that have that uber desirable location. Because there's a lot of houses in Lake Stevens, as much as I love Lake Stevens, but the point is it's not where people are drawing there because, they were drawing there because it was an affordable place to live and they could still live a great lifestyle. But now they can go and they can live in somewhere like, Bothell or Kirkland or whatever at a similar price point.
I love it as much as you love Lake Stevens.
I mean, I've had several clients who bought houses in Lake Stevens.
Lake Stevens.
You like Lake Stevens? I like Lake Stevens.
I mean, the truth is, it is a fantastic community. It's just that there's not much in terms of industry or anything there. But
you haven't been up there lately, JD. There's a brand new Hagen's up there. It's very nice.
Yeah, Whole Foods is moving right in. So when we're talking about what what this market is going to continue to look like, we can also look at the larger investment type companies, that are building wealth and taking other people's money and using it to grow. And like I've got a note here that says Blackstone's $300 billion real estate portfolio is actually growing right now, and I think it kind of brings us back to the idea of Warren Buffett's, comment of, be fearful when others are greedy and take advantage, or whatever he said, take advantage when others are fearful. So, I think
something like that.
Something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. But my point is, like in a circumstance like this, you see investment companies that are going and making a push to, continue to develop their real estate portfolios because they have the cash to be able to do so. They're taking advantage of those prices where they are right now, and they're not needing to worry about real estate or mortgage rates like the majority of us are.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point because Blackstone. I was thinking about this as well, and I was almost going to call it BlackRock. But BlackRock is where Burning Man is, so totally different. Totally different.
It's a hedge fund too.
Totally different. Oh, BlackRock's a hedge fund too, though, right? Okay, so Burning Man, hedge funds, and acquiring assets. Good stuff. Yeah, interesting, right? I don't know how. It's a very interesting to hear, when larger investment companies with capital are actually making an investments while the average consumer, right, is more fearful about the marketplace. So it's difficult to sort through. I can relate to a story that I had where, everybody's buying crypto. And so, of course, I was on a plane ride with this very credible crypto buyer next to me. And so he convinced me, now's the time to buy crypto. So I bought crypto in March, and it's not doing very well for me. So, that time I bought when maybe everybody was greedy about crypto, right? There's no fear, crypto. So now, you might think about that. Well, maybe it is a good time to be buying, and maybe we are in the down cycle, and maybe this is a great time to buy. So a lot of things to think about, making a decision about when to buy in this marketplace or not. From an investment standpoint, again, I think the thing about real estate is real estate over the long term is always shown to appreciate. So it's a very safe investment. It's not speculative. Crypto is speculative, right? It's not something people are dependent upon to do transactions, right? Housing, people need to live in housing, right? So at the end of the day, if you can sort through all the noise in the headlines, real estate is a very safe investment. And if it's right for you right now, then it's a great time to buy.
Right. Yeah. And I think, with the Blackstone example, a lot of people are going to go, well, that's $1 billion investment company. Well, of course they can buy, right? But I think the message there is if your fear is real estate prices are going down, one of the biggest questions that I get now, which, you know, hasn't been something that I've gotten a lot when prices were shooting through the roof, is it going to, you know, are we in a crash? Is it going to crash? Is it going to keep going lower? Is it going to just dive bomb, right? So if you look at a company like that buying a ton of real estate, they're buying it because they're taking advantage because, like you said, everything's on sale, right? They can also, you know, kind of, you know, withstand the storm, the dips and ebbs and flows of it, right? Because they're not just buying one house. So for you, the buyer out there, if you're worried about crash or a dip, if you said one of the lowest projections was a 2% dip, right? Well, what did stocks go down by? A lot more than 2%, 10x that, right? So the point is that real estate is a long-term investment. If you're looking to flip, if you're looking to buy a house and sell it in 6 months and make money, it's not going to happen right now, right? But
it might happen right now.
Yeah, it depends on what you can get it for, I suppose.
Well, if you buy it for,
yeah. But again, very speculative, right?
Right,
Totally get it.
Right,
Yeah.
that's a risk. It's not a guarantee. So, point being is that you can, you know, you can look to these large investments, and it will tell you that these people putting all this money in it believe in real estate. They're believing it in a long-term investment, so you can believe in it too.
Yeah, I'll be the first one to admit that, you know, if I look back 4, 5, 6 months ago, I never would have thought that we would have seen as big a shift and as quick a shift as we've seen in this real estate market. You know, I don't think anyone saw the fact that we were going to see mortgage rates go from 3% in, you know, December to 7% in September.
Yeah.
You know, that was not foreseen. And then obviously prices decreasing in the way they have over the last, let's call it 6 months or so, I think has been much more substantial than we expected. But, you know, at the end of the day, we're all making projections based on what we're hearing from the experts that are, you know, a lot smarter than we are. And, you know, what we're seeing with our boots on the ground, people we're talking with as clients and whatnot. But I think my point is that the two questions that I always want to ask my clients, whether they're buying or selling, is where do you think that prices are heading? And where do you think that mortgage rates are heading? Because at the end of the day, you know, our job is to help give them perspective on what this looks like and what we're seeing. But we're not, you know, what do they call them? My mind's blanking right now, but like fortune tellers.
Fortune tellers, yeah.
I figured I'd
Nostradamus,
get there eventually. We're not fortune tellers, but at the same time, we're going to be able to give people a much better perspective on, you know, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're looking at, than what you're going to be able to just naturally feel. But I like to ask those questions just simply because it gives people the opportunity to tell us what they think, what they're feeling about the market. And if they're feeling super uncomfortable about this market, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say to them to help change their mind. And that's not my job to change their mind. My job is to help give them perspective.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, and I think sometimes it's helpful to play that forward, right? So, okay, what if interest rates go up to 8%? What does that mean for that buyer? You know, what if that happens?
Yeah.
Like, what if the value that you purchase your house and then you go on Zillow and see some inaccurate estimate and your house is worth $50,000 less than you bought it for 6 months ago? What does that mean for you? Well, do you plan on selling it 6 months from now? You don't, and it shouldn't mean anything, right?
Yeah.
So kind of walking through it with them, whatever the uncertainty is, and then you can figure out, you know, always start with like, do you like this house? Is the price work for you? The interest rate, can you afford it? If those things are all in line, then we can, you know, maybe explore it.
Yeah.
One thing that just came up, I had a friend call me the other day, and he's got a beautiful house in Kirkland on the waterfront, and he called me and said, I'm concerned. My property tax assessment just went up by 45%.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And we're not talking a $1
Well,
million
45% to anybody is a lot. So
totally.
let's just talk about
And
that.
so then to be very candid,
Okay.
I got the assessment in my mail, and it was like 45%. I'm like, what the heck? Anyways, the point is that that's going to affect people as well, and affect their ability to be able to afford their homes. If let's say they're you know, towards retirement age, and all of a sudden, you know, they have this 45% appreciation or tax assessment on their house. That's pretty
Did you
substantial.
check what the taxes are in Lake Stevens by chance?
No.
No,
Okay.
35% actually, since
Perfect.
you asked. Yeah.
Probably at least 35%.
Yeah. I just to quickly close on that subject real quick, because if you did face a 45% tax bill and you know your property value is not near that, then you can actually appeal it. So
Correct.
there's a little tip advice. You can actually appeal the assessment, potentially get it down to a more normal current market.
So how would you appeal that assessment, Maynard?
Mm-hmm. You have to go through an appeal process. So we're not going to get into that, but you have to go through an appeal process. So,
Sounds like a lawyer.
yeah, sounds like a lawyer probably. Yeah.
Got it.
Let's talk about the living part, the Seattle living part. With this wealth building podcast show, as we talked about wealth going up, wealth going down, wealth going left, wealth going right. So, what are you guys seeing as far as interesting trends, interesting tidbits that would be fun to talk about?
Well, as far as, styling goes and kind of fun not surface level, but, non-technical interest ratey talk. I've been seeing a lot of people, with the boom of townhouses all around, Seattle, around Lake Union and everything. I've been seeing a lot of people looking for something maybe slightly more unique, not as, redundant. I hate to put it that way because I've sold a lot of townhouses and I think they're great. But I think that now that people have the time and maybe have some more space to kind of research and fill out what they want, I've been seeing people move away actually from like the grand open floor plan that we've been seeing into kind of some more like an older style home, which I found interesting because for a while I want a big kitchen, I want an open floor plan, I want everything open, I don't want it to have walls anywhere, and now there's some more nuance going into that space.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting trend given all the new construction stuff that we have going on. Yeah. Let's see, if you're a dog owner and you buy one of these new construction townhomes. So I learned this, right? You have generally 3 floors and you have a rooftop deck. You often don't have a yard. So if you have a pet, a dog, what do you got to do? Well, you got to walk them all the way around all the time, right? To let them do their business. But on that roof deck, you could actually buy what's called a woof deck. WOOF, woof deck. So it's this lovely deck for your dog. It self-regulates and cleans itself. It can be as big as you want. So when you buy your modern townhome with a roof deck, you can get your woof deck for your puppy.
So does it have like a moving sprinkler or washing thing or something?
It has all kinds of little, gadgets like that
cool.
make it more, I guess, easier to clean. So
Nice.
that's one thing I learned recently. Woof deck.
Is this something you and Lisa are going to explore? Or?
No. We have one of those rare yard spaces, for a modern 3-story home.
That's something I didn't know. I've never heard of a woof deck before.
Well, you're keeping your children away from pets.
You heard it here first, yeah. Mariners
Not
in the
keeping them
playoffs, and
away.
now we have woof decks.
Keeping them away from pets.
Yeah.
Jay, what about you?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like when we're talking about living, I mean, I just always think back to the how our lives have changed so much since the pandemic started. And, it kind of brings me back to real estate and what's appropriate investment to buy and whatnot. But, when we had this push away from the city centers and, the ability to have more space and whatnot, I just think that's had such a drastic change in our lives over the last 3 years. And, I feel like we're going to continue to kind of shift back to more normalcy with that. I do see kind of more of a push towards condo living again. That's a tip for anyone who's thinking about buying an investment. I want to buy a condo, but that's just an opinion, of course. But
Yeah,
I just feel
that's
like
what we're
it's
here
such
for.
I just feel like it's such a drastic,
Always.
just such a drastic
Yeah.
change from one style living to the other. And I mean, for instance, I mentioned my client who bought the place in Greenwood. I mean, she wanted to have something that was walkable and a great location and whatnot. And I mean, you can't ask for a more centralized location than where she's buying in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
It really is fantastic, and I'm so happy for her and her ability to be able to live this lifestyle that she wants to live in a very a developing community in Seattle. I mean, Greenwood's one of the hottest growing communities in our area.
Yeah, yeah. It's cool. She's got a great house and she's got a yard. She doesn't need a woof deck.
No woof decks
No
there.
woof deck
She
needed.
does have a woof, though.
I know.
You know?
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah. Well, cool. When she gets her second property, that's a multi-story. She can get the woof
exactly.
deck. Yeah, I've noticed downtown has picked up for sure. Activity downtown has picked up quite a bit. Traffic has picked up around the area.
You think?
Yeah, a ton. So while we haven't returned to full-time workforce, we've got a ton of vacant space downtown. You know, a lot of our Amazon clients that I talk to, they are in the office 2 days a week.
Yep.
You know, and or 2 to 3 days a week. So, you know, some of them just go in for mandatory team lunch day.
I don't think that I've spoken to a client in a long time that is saying that they are 100% remote anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's trying to figure out, okay, well, what does that commute look like for me for 2 to 3 days a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I think
Bad those 2 days. So based on traffic. But yeah, no, that's cool. I think the flexible work arrangement is going to continue. Now it's just a balance of how much time in office versus not. You know, again, the kind of the scene downtown is definitely more busy. All those kind of bars and restaurants that I thought were, you know, very quiet because they're more in the Amazon kind of downtown urban core, you know, where the workers were, and when they weren't there, those businesses were a little bit dead. You know, now there's a lot of action going on there. So that's a new shift I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an article out just the other day. Seattle Met put out an article on the top 10 hottest new restaurants in Seattle. That kind of spanned like up to Greenwood, Finney Ridge, and stuff like that. But I read it, and they're awesome places, all different types of food and price points and whatnot. But it was just exciting because it's like, oh, wow, like not only are these restaurants reopening, but we're actually like creating new businesses again. You know, so there's a demand out there for it. And that is because of this hybrid model that I think is really there to stay. You know, when the pandemic hit, everybody that had lived in the city or thought they needed to be in the city experimented by going, okay, I'm not going to have to be in my office for another year and a half, right? Or I've got permission, or this is my prediction, whatever. So they moved out. And I've sold houses an hour outside of Seattle.
Yeah.
Those clients are now commuting, like you said, about 2 days a week. Totally happy to do it, but they're also happy to live out there. But while they're in the city, they're out, you know, contributing to the commerce there as well. So we're seeing a lot of more, you know, vibe there than we had in the past, where it was kind of just dead.
Yeah, definitely. I had a surprising statistic that I heard, just because anecdotally, often people are like, you know, leaving the city, downtown still has its spots where it's kind of dead. But Seattle had a net inflow of people based on first and second quarter activity. More people were moving into the Seattle area than were moving out of the Seattle area, and I found that pretty interesting.
not entirely surprising. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, with the tech world still booming and growing, and I understand that there's a lot of people who have left Seattle for variety of reasons. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, it just shows that Seattle, the greater Seattle area, is going to continue to be a growth spot in the U.S. And, you know, I think you're going to, that's why I think the light rail is such a huge factor for people when they're deciding where they want to live. Lots of people I'm speaking with are, you know, where can I live on the east side that has close proximity to the light rail? Because I don't know if I'm going to live in, you know, work for Amazon in Bellevue or work for Amazon in Seattle. And so having the ability to work in both is great.
Yeah, definitely. Amazon Bellevue is basically, you know, Amazon's like second headquarters. That big old search for where is HQ2 going to be? Well, Amazon Bellevue is it. They went for a little hybrid. There's other cities like DC and Austin as well, but that's pretty interesting. You know, and you've got clients living on both sides. Facebook is continuing to invest in the area. Google as well. The Google campus over in Kirkland is just massive.
Well, actually, I think one thing that I really wanted to talk about today was about things that we're seeing sellers do to help increase the value of their home. And, you know, it's very trend worthy, but, you know, Google, there was actually an article recently published, the number one things that were, or number one styles of homes that were searched on Google. And number one by far, as we all would know in this world, is mid-century modern. That's been the number one for quite a few years now, but it's still number one right now. And then new modern construction is number two. You know, but when we're talking about things that people can do when they're looking to improve the the saleability of their home. You know, painting a front door is a perfect example. And Maynard and I were looking at this article the other day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think they were saying that you could have the value of your home increased by $6,500 more than if you were to paint your door in a different color. And the most popular color was black, the one that actually, you know, shows the most value. So
Yeah.
bit of advice for everyone there.
That's cool. I definitely think that speaks to the trend of what we see. We see a lot of white with black hardware, definitely in the modern style homes. So that was interesting, but it reinforced kind of what we're feeling out there. Just never really thought about the importance of a front door. The one thing that did not surprise me is one of the worst doors was pale pink. I'm like, well, really? Yeah, like brilliant. Pale pink is not a very attractive name in and of itself.
No.
And if you look at the color on a front door, it's not good either. So that's another piece of advice. Do not paint your house pale pink if you actually want to sell it for money, especially in this high inventory market.
Right.
But what's funny to me is that, you know, you have the second worst door, the one that was right there was pale pink, and there was a charcoal essentially.
Cement gray.
So was it cement gray? Okay.
Cement gray.
Sure.
Close. Yeah.
Yeah. But
The
anyways,
gray genre.
and I found that very surprising because, you know,
Do you have a cement gray door?
no, I do not. I have a natural wood door. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah. But anyways, I just found that interesting. I think, you know, those types of things are things that people can speak to us about to help try and figure out, okay, well, I'm planning on selling in the next 3 years. What are the things that I can do to help increase the value of my home or make my home more saleable? Let's have those conversations and really figure out what makes the most sense. Because, you know, obviously painting a door pink, not many people are going to do that. But at the same time, you know, everyone has a different aesthetic value. Right. And even interior paint colors. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, my opinion is that I'm always going to advise my sellers to keep things as bright and fresh and airy as possible. But, you know, I'll say that to certain clients and they'll be like, oh, but I hate white. I'm like, well,
Yeah. Well, it's not about you, right?
Exactly.
If you're trying to sell it, it's
That's
about
exactly right.
the marketplace.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, think about how many listings, you know, you labor on. What is that first photo going to be, right? Like how important that is, because that's everybody's online, everybody's on apps looking at these houses, and you know, you've got to grab their attention. So, you know, these little nuances, these small choices are even more important now. You know, like, is that shrub ugly? Does it need to be trimmed? Do we need to do landscaping? All those little things. You've got the time to do it. It's definitely worth the investment.
Yeah, buyers are flexing right now. They like the power position, right? So, yeah, they can be picky.
They want fresh roses out there.
They can be
they
picky.
Don't want a dead plant.
Yeah. Like too many spiders. Well, it's spider season, so hey, you know what?
Natural habitat.
Yeah, exactly. Now you have the luxury to choose. Yeah, but your comment about white and that being a very important color for our like rainy Seattle area, you know, even though it is sunny right now, that's definitely something. You know, again, when you think about why homes aren't selling and maybe homes that used to sell, well, homes that are not getting enough natural light, you know, homes that are just dark and dreary, like, you know, maybe they would sell before, but now they're not since buyers can be picky. I thought an interesting stat I heard was that Seattle, while known for its rain, has less rain than Houston.
And New York City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so some interesting facts there. So maybe even going to change even further with global warming. So.
Well, if we're going to be in the 70s all October, I agree. That sounds great.
Yeah. Another cool stat I heard is Seattle is one of the top friendliest cities. And one of the reasons it's so friendly is because 99% of Seattle residents have a park they can walk to within 10 minutes. We have a lot of parks.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that.
It's kind of not surprising, actually, because people who move here, who come here and they haven't been here before, they're like, wow, this place is so green.
Right.
Like, yeah, we got green everywhere because it rains, not as much as Houston, but because it rains steadily.
Right.
Yeah, well, Houston, it rains for, probably 30 days.
Yeah.
It just rains a lot.
That's interesting. I'm stuck on the parks thing. I'm thinking I've probably got at least 5
Yeah. We also have a lot of street fairs.
Oh, and farmers markets.
Farmers markets, street fairs. Yeah, high percentage there as well.
Name a neighborhood that does not have a farmers market.
Right. Well, I mean, there's just a lot of culture
Yeah.
in Seattle. You know, when you meet somebody on the street in Seattle, there's a great chance that they weren't born here. You know, so you bring a lot of different energies different cultures, people from different backgrounds, and there's like the Seattle freeze. But I think people are courteous here. I don't think they're cold.
The Seattle courtesy.
It's courtesy, right? Yeah. So you go East Coast and people are, a little bit more maybe gregarious in some way, but in Seattle we're very polite and reserved. So you might be at a 4-way stop and you're there for 15 minutes because everybody's waiting for somebody else to go. But yeah, it is a friendly city.
Well, cool, guys. I mean, we talked about a lot of things. Obviously, the market, being one of the top things that are on people's minds. So hopefully we were able to provide some insights and guidance there. And it was fun to get into the living part of the show and end up, with a wide range of information to go over. As we wrap up here, any kind of last thoughts, closing remarks?
I guess I would say to anybody thinking about buying or selling, like, you're not going to make a bad decision. If you really just think about what makes sense for you, as long as you're not in some immediate rush to buy or sell, maybe now, maybe later, but, don't fixate on an interest rate or price or media or even what a single real estate agent says. Like, really think about what are your needs and how you're going to go about it, and somebody else can help you. Maybe it's me.
Listen to our podcast and listen to 3 real estate agents.
Yeah, 3, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Going through your scorecard of should I buy or should I not buy, and ending up with a B grade. Yeah, there's a lot going for you. You're rarely going to end up with A pluses across the board. Right. So there's always something, no matter your budget or no matter your situation. Rarely do you find the house that checks 99 of the 100 boxes.
There's lots of things to be concerned with, not just in our real estate market, but in our economy and, life in general, and with Ukraine and whatever. There's a lot of confusion out there with what's happening with inflation and mortgage rates going up and, what the next political system is going to look like or whatever it may be. And there's frustration on people's minds. But at the end of the day, we're all going to get through this. Life continues to go on. In our world, people buy and sell houses every day. They just do it for different reasons. So at the end of the day, we're here to help support you in any way you need. And whether it means buying or selling or just simply someone to talk to, we're here for you.
Yep. And if you need a referral for a roof deck manufacturer, let me know. I've got a list for you. So got lots of knowledge on that topic as well. Perfect. So. All right, guys. Well, that was fun to catch up again, and looking forward to chatting on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.